My name is Margaret Sterling. For 40 years, I was a librarian, a custodian of stories and quiet truths. I lived my life between the covers of books, in a world ordered by the Dewey Decimal System and the gentle rustle of turning pages. My home, a small cottage nestled amongst climbing roses and old oak trees in the quieter part of Port Blossom, has been my sanctuary since my husband, Henry, passed away 5 years ago. It's a life of peaceful routines, tending my garden, volunteering at the local literacy center, and, until recently, pouring all the love I had left into my only grandson, Noah. Henry and I built a comfortable, if not extravagant, life. He was a practical man, an engineer who saw the world in clean lines and solid foundations. His life insurance and our modest savings were meant to be my security, a buffer against the uncertainties of old age. I never imagined they would become the fuel for someone else's fantasy. The story of how I found myself standing outside the shimmering glass walls of the waterfront conservatory, barred from my own grandson's 7th birthday party, is not a simple one. It's a quiet tragedy that unfolded over years, a slow erosion of boundaries I never knew I needed to build. My son, Daniel, threw a birthday party with 300 guests for my grandson. When I arrived, the security guard said, "Sorry, ma'am. This party is for close family only." I smiled. I made just one phone call, and every guest was left in shock. The salt-laced breeze from the harbor did little to cool the flush of shame warming my cheeks. I stood there, clutching a small, neatly wrapped gift, a first edition set of the Chronicles of Narnia, a treasure I'd sourced from a specialty book dealer, while a stream of impeccably dressed guests swept past me into the sun-drenched ballroom. A young man in a crisp black suit, his name tag reading "Event Staff," blocked my path with an apologetic but firm stance. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This party is for close family only," he repeated, his gaze politely fixed on a point just over my shoulder. Close family only. The phrase hung in the air, a cruel paradox. I am his family. I'm Noah's grandmother. I taught him how to turn the pages of a book without tearing them. I was the one he'd call for when he had a nightmare. "There must be a mistake," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "I'm Margaret Sterling. Noah is my grandson." The young man shifted, his discomfort palpable as he consulted a sleek tablet. "I'm sorry, but your name isn't on the approved guest list." My instructions were very clear. Through the glass, the scene was one of breathtaking extravagance. A mountain of vibrant blue and silver balloons scraped the high ceiling. A full-sized carousel, its painted horses gleaming, turned slowly in one corner. Children in miniature suits and party dresses darted between tables laden with towering cakes and sparkling drinks. The scale of it was staggering, a spectacle that must have cost more than my car. My son, Daniel, and his wife, Isabel, had spared no expense. "Could you please check with my son? Daniel Sterling. He's the father." "I'll need to verify with Mrs. Sterling," the staffer said, reaching for his earpiece. Before he could, the click of stilettos on the marble floor announced her arrival. Isabel appeared in the doorway, a vision in a silk dress the color of a summer sky. At 34, she possessed a polished, brittle beauty that seemed curated for magazine pages. "Oh, Margaret," she exclaimed, her voice a confection of surprise and pity. "What are you doing here?" The question was a perfectly aimed dart. What was I doing here? I was here to celebrate the boy whose first smile was directed at me, whose first steps were taken toward my outstretched arms. "I'm here for Noah's party," I managed, my voice a thin thread. "I brought him a gift." Isabel's perfectly glossed lips curved into something that was not quite a smile. It was a display of power. "Oh, darling, didn't Daniel tell you? We decided to keep it small this year. Just immediate family." My eyes swept past her, over the sea of faces inside, Daniel's colleagues, Isabel's friends from her yoga studio, parents from Noah's exclusive private school. Hundreds of people, none of whom had rocked him to sleep or kissed his scraped knees. But I, his grandmother, was not immediate enough. "Isabel, please," I whispered, hating the tremor in my voice. "I just want to see him. To wish him a happy birthday." "He's just so swamped with his friends right now," she said, her body an elegant barrier in the doorway. "It would be too disruptive." Perhaps we can arrange something later. Something smaller, more appropriate. Appropriate. The word twisted in my gut. Appropriate for whom? For the woman who called me in tears whenever she needed money, but who now treated me like a social liability. Where is Daniel? I asked, searching the crowd desperately. I need to speak with my son. He's managing the catering. You know how these things are, so much to coordinate, Isabel said with a breezy wave of her hand. Just then, I saw him, a flash of bright, familiar hair. Noah, in a tiny blue blazer, laughing as he chased a friend around a table. His joy was a beacon, and the glass door between us felt as thick and impenetrable as a vault. A profound ache settled in my chest, a loneliness so sharp it reminded me of the first days after Henry's death. I'll just leave this for him, I said, extending the gift. That's so thoughtful, Isabel cooed, but she made no move to take it, instead nodding to the security guard. I'll make sure he gets it. The dismissal was absolute. I turned away, each step away from that ballroom feeling heavier than the last. Behind me, I heard Isabel's voice, suddenly warm and effusive as she greeted another arriving couple. Michael. Jessica. So glad you could make it. Noah will be thrilled to see you. The parking lot shimmered under the afternoon sun. I felt invisible as other guests, chattering with excitement, walked past me. I slid into my old, reliable sedan, the scent of old books and dried lavender a stark contrast to the opulence I'd just been excluded from. I placed the gift on the passenger seat, my hand resting on the smooth paper. For years, I had been the silent benefactor, the emergency contact, the emotional and financial safety net. And in a single, humiliating moment, I had been demoted to an inconvenience. But as I sat there, the deep, aching hurt began to calcify into something harder. It wasn't just sadness anymore, it was a cold, clear anger. It was the culmination of 1,000 small cuts, the patronizing comments, the endless emergencies, the growing sense that my love was being measured in dollars and cents. I took out my phone, my fingers scrolling through my contacts until I found the number I needed. My thumb hovered over the call button. This was not a rash decision. It was a foundation shifting. Once I made this call, the carefully constructed facade of our family would crumble. I pressed the screen. The phone rang twice. Port Blossom Community Bank, this is Brenda speaking. How can I help you? Brenda, it's Margaret Sterling, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I need to speak with you about my son and daughter-in-law's accounts. Specifically, the ones linked to mine. The party was still in full swing, a symphony of laughter and music drifting across the parking lot. But I was no longer the powerless woman at the gate. I was a librarian who knew how to find information, a widow who knew the value of a solid foundation, and a grandmother who had finally had enough. I started the engine and drove away. Noah would get his Narnia set. But first, his mother was about to get a lesson in reality. Driving the familiar route back to my quiet street, my mind spooled backwards, searching for the beginning of this tangled, painful story. When had my love become a liability? When had my desire to help become a tool for my own exploitation? The answer was clear. It began the moment Isabel realized my love came with a healthy bank account. 9 years ago, when Daniel first brought her home, I was enchanted. Isabel was effervescent, full of ambition and dazzling smiles. She was working as an assistant at a high-end art gallery, and she spoke of a future filled with beauty and success. Daniel deserves the best of everything, she told me over tea in my garden. He's so brilliant and kind. I just want to build a life worthy of him. I saw her as a partner for my son, a vibrant force that would complement his quieter nature. I paid for their wedding, a lovely affair at a local vineyard, feeling nothing but joy. The first request came during their honeymoon in Italy. A tearful, frantic call from Isabel. Their rental car had been towed in Florence, and they needed €800 to get it back. I'm so terribly embarrassed to ask, Margaret, she'd wept into the phone. We budgeted so carefully for the trip, but this is just an awful, unforeseen expense. I wired the money without a second thought. Who wouldn't want to rescue their child's perfect honeymoon? That was the first crack in the dam. Soon, the requests became a steady stream. They needed help with the security deposit on a chic downtown apartment. Their furniture was all mismatched hand-me-downs. Could I help them create a more adult home? Then came Isabel's art history degree loans, a source of crushing stress that was, she claimed, preventing them from even thinking about starting a family. The doctor said my stress levels are a major factor, Margaret, she'd confided, her hand on her heart. And we want to give you a grandchild more than anything in the world. The promise of a grandchild. It was the key that unlocked everything. I paid off her $35,000 loan. When Noah was born, I assumed the financial requests would cease. The goal had been achieved. But the expenses only multiplied. The birth had complications, Isabel explained, and their insurance wasn't covering all the bills. We're drowning, Margaret, she'd sighed, bouncing a cherubic Noah on her hip. And the stress is affecting my ability to be a good mother. It's for Noah's sake. Another $15,000 for my grandson's well-being. The pattern was masterful in its subtlety. Every request was wrapped in a cloak of concern for Daniel or Noah. It was never for Isabel. It was always for the family. Noah's preschool was prohibitively expensive. Could I cover it? Just until Isabel's career in art curation took off? 2 years later, I was still paying the $1,200 monthly tuition. Their apartment was too small. They needed a house with a yard for Noah to play in. But their credit wasn't strong enough for the mortgage they wanted in the exclusive Oak Haven estates. I co-signed. When they were a little short on the mortgage payment, I covered the difference. New roof, plumbing emergency, car repairs, I was the family's permanent emergency fund. But it wasn't just the money, it was the emotional performance. The tear-filled calls, the dramatic sighs, the way she made me feel like the family's sole protector. You're our guardian angel, Margaret, she'd say. Noah is so lucky to have a grandmother who cares this much. And I, a lonely widow who missed being needed, soaked it in. I had a purpose again. I was building a legacy for my grandson. But slowly, the gratitude began to curdle. The praise felt rehearsed. And Isabel's attitude towards me shifted from grateful to dismissive. It began with small remarks. You spoil him, Margaret, she'd say with a tight smile when I brought Noah a new book. We're trying to teach him the value of things. My parenting advice, gleaned from years of raising Daniel, was gently dismissed. Oh, I know that's how you did it, but the research is so different now. My babysitting duties dwindled. We're trying to establish a more consistent routine with his nanny, Isabel would explain. It was nothing personal, she insisted, but it felt deeply personal, especially when I'd see photos on social media of her and Daniel out for a lavish dinner, while Noah was with the nanny whose salary I was subsidizing. About a year ago, I noticed a significant change. Isabel's lifestyle took a dramatic leap. There were designer handbags, weekly spa appointments, a new luxury SUV. She joined an exclusive country club. Daniel got a huge bonus, she'd announced brightly when I'd cautiously commented on the new car. We can finally breathe a little. But I knew what Daniel made. I had helped him negotiate his last promotion. The math, the solid, unyielding logic Henry had taught me to respect, simply didn't add up. That's when the librarian in me took over. I started looking, not with suspicion, but with a need for order, for facts. I cross-referenced my bank transfers with the preschool's tuition schedule. I looked up the cost of the emergency roof repair. And during one of my last visits, while helping Isabel bring in groceries, a receipt fell out of her purse. It wasn't from a hardware store or a pediatrician's office. It was from a high-end boutique for a pair of shoes that cost more than my monthly utility bills, dated the same day I had sent her money for Noah's urgent dental work. The truth, when it finally assembled itself, was cold and sharp. The money I'd sent for Noah, for his education, his health, his well-being, had been systematically diverted into a separate account. An account that funded Isabel's transformation from an ambitious art gallery assistant into a woman of leisure. While I was carefully budgeting my pension, she was living a life of luxury on my savings. The betrayal was a physical sensation, a hollowing out of my chest. She hadn't just taken my money. She had weaponized my love for my grandson against me. That night, after the party, I sat at my old oak desk, the gift for Noah still on the chair beside me. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The numbers, cold and irrefutable, stared back. Over 9 years, I had given them over $150,000. Money from Henry's legacy. Money I had saved for my own future. Money I had given out of love. $150,000. And I wasn't even welcome at my grandson's birthday party. I picked up the phone and dialed Brenda at the bank again. Brenda, it's Margaret. I need a complete record of every transfer made from my accounts to Isabel Sterling's personal accounts over the past 5 years. As Brenda promised to compile the data, I felt a new emotion take root, displacing the hurt. It was the cold, hard resolve of a woman who had been pushed too far. The guests at that party thought they were celebrating a little boy's birthday. They were about to find out they were celebrating a fraud. I woke the next morning to the gentle chirping of sparrows outside my window, but there was a storm brewing inside me. The fog of grief and confusion had lifted, replaced by a crystalline clarity. The time for quiet acceptance was over. I'd spent half the night at my desk, a librarian on her most important research mission. With the detailed statements Brenda from the bank had emailed me, I created a spreadsheet, a timeline of deceit. The evidence was irrefutable. It's one of the cleanest cases of fund misappropriation I've ever seen. Brenda had told me over the phone in a hushed, professional tone. Each transfer you made for a specified NOAA expense was moved to her personal savings account, often within the hour. None of it ever went to the school or the doctor's office you were told it was for. But Brenda had unearthed something far more sinister. Margaret, I took the liberty of running a soft credit inquiry, given the circumstances. It seems Mrs. Sterling has been using you as a financial guarantor on several major lines of credit. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She listed you, your assets, and your pristine credit history as a co-applicant or a primary financial backer for the loan on her SUV, 2 high-limit credit cards, and even a personal loan from a private lender last year for $20,000. The application states the reason as home renovation. I felt sick. She hadn't just been stealing my cash, she had been mortgaging my good name, the reputation for fiscal prudence that Henry and I had spent our lives building. She was living on credit backed by my stability, my very identity. Now, sitting in my sun-drenched kitchen, a mug of coffee growing cold in my hands, I dialed Daniel's number. Sterling speaking. His voice was brisk, professional. Daniel, it's your mother. A pause. His tone softened, but it was laced with caution. Hey, Mom. How are you? I'm calling about yesterday. About the party. Another pause, longer this time. Look, Mom, I'm really sorry about that. There was a mix-up with the guest list. Isabel was just trying to keep things from getting out of control. A mix-up, I repeated, the words tasting like ash. Daniel, I wasn't mixed up. I was deliberately excluded. Your wife stood in the doorway and told me I wasn't welcome. Mom, don't be so dramatic. It wasn't a personal attack. Then please, explain to me how Isabel's yoga instructor and your boss from the regional office were on the list, but Noah's only living grandmother was not. Silence. I could hear the gears turning in his head as he tried to construct an acceptable lie. Isabel felt it would be better to have a separate celebration with you. Something smaller, more intimate. When? When what? When is this smaller, more intimate celebration scheduled to happen, Daniel? More silence. We both knew it was a fiction. We'll figure something out, he said finally, his voice weak. Maybe next weekend. Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. How much money do you think I've given you and Isabel in the past year? Mom, what is this about? Just answer the question. I heard him sigh. I don't know. A few thousand, maybe? You've helped out with some of Noah's bigger expenses. We're very grateful. A few thousand. I looked down at the spreadsheet on my table. Daniel, I have given you and Isabel over $40,000 in the last 12 months alone. That's impossible. Not only is it possible, it's documented. Every transfer, every check. $40,000 for preschool tuition that was never paid to the school, for medical bills already covered by your insurance, and for summer camps Noah never attended. Mom, I think you're confused. I am not confused. The words came out like shards of glass. I am not dramatic, and I am not old and forgetful. Your wife has been systematically stealing from me. Don't talk about Isabel that way. Like what? A thief? Because that is precisely what she is, Daniel. She has been using my love for my grandson to fund her country club membership and her designer wardrobe. While I have been living on my pension, she's been vacationing on my life savings. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Ask her to show you the receipts for Noah's preschool. Ask her to show you the bank statements for the account where she deposits the money I send. I'll wait. I could hear his ragged breathing on the other end of the line. Even if some of that is true, you gave us that money. No one put a gun to your head. The casual cruelty of that statement struck me with the force of a physical blow. You're right, Daniel. No one forced me. I gave it out of love. But I didn't give it so your wife could get a luxury SUV and lie to my face about it. Mom, you're crossing a line. No, Daniel. For the first time, I am drawing a line. And your wife is on the other side of it. I hung up before he could reply, my hand trembling not with weakness, but with a liberating rage. I had spent years walking on eggshells, terrified of upsetting the delicate balance of my family. I finally realized the balance was a sham. I immediately dialed Brenda at the bank. Brenda, it's Margaret. I need you to take immediate action. Freeze every joint account I share with Daniel and Isabel. And I want you to officially flag every line of credit that Isabel Sterling has opened using my name or my financial information as collateral. Margaret, this is a very drastic measure, Brenda said gently. It will cause immediate financial disruption for them. Good, I said, my voice cold as ice. It's time they experienced a little disruption. It's time they learned to live on their own income, not mine. After I hung up, I felt a profound sense of calm. The storm had broken. There would be fallout, of course. Angry calls, accusations, tears. But I was no longer afraid. I was in control. I picked up my phone one last time. I found the number for the Waterfront Conservatory on the party invitation I'd kept. The Waterfront Conservatory. This is Laura. Laura, my name is Margaret Sterling. I believe there's a large birthday party in your main ballroom for a boy named Noah Sterling. Yes, ma'am. The Sterling Party. It's a beautiful event. I'm sure it is. I'm calling to give you a professional courtesy. The credit cards being used to pay the final balance for that event are about to be declined. The accounts they are linked to have been frozen due to suspected financial fraud. There was a stunned silence on the other end. Ma'am, I don't understand. You will, I said softly. Very soon, you're going to receive a visit from a very distressed woman named Isabel Sterling. I just wanted you to be prepared. Should I be concerned about payment for our services? Laura asked, her voice now tight with worry. I thought of the carousel, the mountains of gifts, the sheer, staggering waste of it all, funded by my stolen future. Oh no, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. Don't worry about the payment. Just make sure Mrs. Sterling understands that there are consequences for theft. As I hung up, I realized I was looking forward to the phone call I knew was coming. The party, it seemed, was just getting started.